Okay, imagine this. You've just survived one of those days. You know the ones. It was long, just relentlessly demanding, and honestly, your brain feels completely fried. You finally collapse onto the couch, remote in hand, and you're faced with that, well, that glorious but also kind of overwhelming infinite scroll of new stuff on your streaming app. There are those documentaries you keep meaning to watch, right? The critically acclaimed dramas everyone's talking about, maybe some quirky new comedies that look promising, but like instinctively, almost without thinking, your finger just hovers. And then you do it. Against that huge tide of novelty, you hit play on that familiar, well-worn favorite, the one you've seen, I don't know, maybe a dozen times. Have you ever actually stopped and wondered why you do that? Why, in a world just overflowing with new stories and endless options, you so often choose the known thing over the novel thing again and again? It's a really common habit, isn't it? Almost like a comforting ritual for so many of us, like this quiet little rebellion against the tyranny of choice. But what's really going on, like under the surface, when you settle back into a story you already know by heart?
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here is just how much deep psychological wiring, emotional stuff, and even social context goes into that seemingly simple decision to rewatch something. It's way more than just habit, or being a bit lazy, which I think are common assumptions people make. So the core topic we're diving into today is exactly that, the profound kind of multi-layered science behind our enduring love for rewatching TV shows. It really taps into these deep-seated psychological, emotional, and even sociological reasons that go far beyond what most of us might guess. And this is where, an everyday, maybe seemingly trivial behavior meets some rigorous scientific inquiry and reveals some pretty surprising insights into fundamental human needs and how our brains are just wired for comfort.
That's right. And this deep dive, it's designed to go way beyond those first, maybe surface level assumptions you might have. We've really meticulously gathered some compelling sources. I mean, everything from groundbreaking academic studies and insightful psychological research to, real-world accounts and really personal reflections from viewers just like you. Our aim is really to provide a comprehensive understanding of why rewatching content offers such profound comfort and plays such a, well, significant role in our lives. Our mission truly is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from all this material, offering you a direct shortcut to being well informed about your own viewing habits and, that broader human desire for comfort, predictability, and maybe some stability in what often feels like a constantly shifting, uncertain world. So get ready for some genuine aha moments because we're about to unpack why your comfort show is so much more than just a show. It's actually a powerful tool for well-being.
Absolutely. And when we talk about comfort at its very core, we are almost always talking about predictability and a deep sense of safety. This isn't just a preference. It's really a fundamental drive for our brains, something that's been, well, hardwired into us through evolution.
And that innate drive leads us right into our first big discovery about rewatching, how it drastically helps reduce our cognitive load. Just think about it for a moment. Watching a brand new show requires a significant amount of mental effort. Your brain is constantly working overtime, right? Almost like a high-performance computer running multiple complex programs all at once. You're learning unfamiliar characters, trying to grasp their backstories and motivations. You're tracking multiple, often intricate plot threads, trying to predict what will happen next, and navigating the suspense of cliffhangers or unexpected twists. This constant processing, this nonstop mental work, it contributes to a significantly higher cognitive load, basically. How much information your brain is trying to handle at any given moment.
Precisely. Dr. Jennifer Fayard, a psychologist who writes a lot for Psychology Today, really emphasizes this point. She highlighted, for instance, how the recent pandemic dramatically increased people's overall cognitive load. I mean, we were just bombarded with an unprecedented amount of new information, right? Forced to make crucial, often high-stakes decisions daily and navigate constantly changing, uncertain circumstances, everything from adapting to endless Zoom meetings to balancing work with childcare duties. Our working memory is, well, it's a finite resource, much like the RAM in your computer. When that resource is strained or when we feel mentally exhausted, our brains instinctively seek the path of least resistance. We turn to familiar shows specifically to avoid piling even more demands onto our already overloaded mental plates. It's kind of an act of mental self-preservation.
So what you're saying is it's not that we're being unintelligent or lazy when we opt for a rerun. It's actually quite the opposite. Our brains are being incredibly efficient. They're conserving a limited mental resource. It's almost like our brain is being strategically lazy, but in the best possible way, by choosing the path that requires minimal energy. It's like an internal energy-saving mode, protecting our precious mental bandwidth for when we really need it.
That's an excellent way to frame it, yeah.
Yeah.
And this phenomenon stands in stark contrast to the experience of rewatching. When you know a show inside and out, like every line, every plot twist, every character arc, your brain, as you said, does virtually zero work to figure out what's going on. This effortlessness isn't just convenient. It actually allows for genuine, profound mental relaxation. It provides an immediate and quite palpable sense of cognitive relief, like finally exhaling after holding your breath.
Oh, I can totally relate to that feeling. Knowing, for example, that Nick and Jess will eventually find their way back to each other in New Girl, even through all their hilarious breakups and those frustrating will they won't they bits, it completely removes any stressful anticipation, doesn't it? You can just lean back, knowing the emotional payoff is coming, and just enjoy the journey, the quirks, the humor, without any mental strain. It really shifts your focus.
It absolutely does. And Fayard's research goes further, indicating that watching familiar shows can actively restore feelings of self-control after a period of significant exertion. Her studies show that people actually prefer familiar shows when they feel mentally depleted. It's not just passive entertainment. It's a proactive mechanism for psychological recovery and resource replenishment. And what's more, this phenomenon ties into a very well-known psychological concept known as the mere exposure effect.
Oh, that sounds interesting. The mere exposure effect.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a bit more for us? What does that mean exactly?
Certainly. It's a concept that's quite simple, really, yet incredibly powerful in explaining our preferences. Basically, the more times we are exposed to something, whether it's a catchy song, a particular image, or, in our case, a beloved TV show, the more we tend to like it. Now, this isn't just about familiarity itself. It's because prior exposure increases what psychologists call perceptual fluency.
Perceptual fluency.
Yeah, it's basically the ease with which our brains can process that information in later encounters. And here's the really key insight. Easy processing, when the brain works smoothly and efficiently, intrinsically generates positive emotions.
So it's like a built-in feedback loop. The more we watch it, the easier it becomes for our brains to process, the more positive we feel about it. And then, of course, the more we want to watch it again. So every rewatch isn't just a rerun. It's actively rewiring your brain to love that content even more. It's like a built-in mechanism for cultivating comfort. That makes perfect sense now, where shows like Friends or The Office have been watched just countless times by millions of people.
It absolutely does, yeah. And this powerful effect of familiarity ties directly into the broader theme of emotional security and our innate human yearning for control. The predictability of a rewatched storyline acts as this invaluable safety net. It completely removes the potential for disappointment, fear, sadness, or anxiety that new, unknown narratives might inevitably bring. You avoid the sudden heartbreak of an unexpected character death, right? Or the stress of a looming conflict, or even the frustration of an ambiguous ending. Knowing precisely what will happen makes the entire viewing experience feel profoundly safe.
That truly makes a lot of sense. I remember reading Dr. Shira Gabriel, a psychologist cited in Everyday Health. She explicitly states that when you already know the story, you are less likely to be disappointed or scared or sad from it. And the established echoed that, noting familiar shows aren't anxiety-inducing since you know how they end. It really is about creating this predictable, emotionally secure bubble, almost like stepping into a warm, familiar embrace.
You've hit on an absolutely crucial point there. This isn't just about entertainment. It connects to a really primal human need for security and a sense of mastery in an often unpredictable and chaotic world. I mean, in a life full of uncertainties, from global events to personal challenges, just being able to predict the outcome of a story, to pause, rewind, or even jump directly to a favorite scene, it provides a tangible and immediate feeling of mastery. It's a unique sense of control. Clinical psychologist Alexandra Gold, who was cited in the Post, emphasizes predictability as a large factor in why we seek out comfort shows. And it's not just academic theory. An Instagram poll run by The Established found that there's a sense of control in the storyline was a key reason people gave for rewatching.
I can definitely see how that resonates so strongly, especially for you, the listener. If you might be navigating tough times or maybe just a new normal, like many of us experienced during and after, well, recent global events. When life feels chaotic and complex, our comfort show offers this predictable, comforting little island in the storm. It's a powerful, even if it's subconscious, way to make sense of, or at least cope with, complex life stuff, even if it's just within a fictional world. It gives you a sanctuary where you know the rules and you can kind of dictate the pace.
And moving beyond just comfort and predictability, there are even deeper psychological and social benefits to rewatching that really underscore its significance. One of the most compelling is how it taps into that innate human need to belong, which often manifests through what researchers call parasocial connections.
That's fascinating. I've definitely heard that term parasocial relationships before. It sounds like a fancy way of saying we feel like these characters are our friends or maybe even family, even though we know, like, intellectually they're not real people. Is that
Yeah.
basically it?
You've captured the essence of it perfectly.
Yeah. Researchers describe the human need to belong as being as fundamental, as crucial for our well-being, as the need for physical shelter or food. Dr. Jay Derrick and Dr. Shira Gabriel, leading researchers in this area, published some really groundbreaking studies, some going back to 2009, exploring how our favorite TV shows can serve as an incredibly powerful source of connection, precisely when individuals feel lonely, isolated, or even rejected.
Wow. So these fictional worlds and the people in them can actually counteract real feelings of social rejection or loneliness. That's quite profound. It suggests a very deep psychological impact. It truly is. Consider one of the key studies. They had participants write about a recent fight with someone close to them. And, as you'd expect, this task naturally led to increased feelings of rejection, more negative mood, and lower self-esteem. Standard stuff. But here's where it gets really interesting. When they were then asked to think about their favorite TV show, and crucially, it had to be a favorite, not just any old program, all of those typical negative effects of rejection, remarkably just, disappeared. It's almost as if the mere thought of their beloved fictional community provided an immediate antidote to real-world social pain. As Dr. Gabriel put it so well, we did not evolve to differentiate between the real groups in our lives and the ones we see on TV. Even though we know they are not real, they feel real to us.
Wow. That's a powerful statement. It really makes you rethink how our brains process these experiences. It brings to mind Blair Perkins, a viewer who shared in Everyday Health, that they rewatch Friends specifically because it brings a sense of belonging and makes them feel part of their little group. It's just a direct, everyday experience that perfectly illustrates that research. They're not just watching, they're participating in a way in this cherished social circle.
It truly is a remarkable demonstration of our inherent social wiring. And furthermore, rewatching shows can subtly function as a form of background noise or provide this gentle social stimulation without carrying the demands or pressures of actual, face-to-face socializing. It offers a feeling of having someone familiar talking to you, creating a comforting ambient presence. A Reddit user, Final and Infinite, vividly described using background shows precisely to mimic this kind of low-stakes social stimulation. And in a fascinating qualitative study from Costa Rica, a participant named Francesca mentioned her habit of rewatching content while cleaning, stating simply, "It makes me feel like I'm not alone."
Oh, that's incredibly relatable for anyone who lives alone or maybe just spends a lot of time by themselves. It's like having companions in your home without the pressure of needing to respond or engage or maintain an active conversation. You can piece in and out of the conversation whenever you want, as that Reddit user so perfectly put it. This benefit seems especially relevant for people who spend a lot of time alone or perhaps those who struggle with social anxiety and find real-world interactions kind of draining. It provides a unique kind of social comfort without the social cost, right?
Precisely. And beyond fostering connection, rewatching also plays a significant and often underestimated role in emotional regulation and energy restoration. In psychology, we often talk about self-control as a limited resource, almost like a muscle that tires out after you use it a lot. Activities like regulating your emotions, suppressing impulses, focusing attention, or managing strong reactions, these all require a significant expenditure of this self-control resource.
Okay, so if you've had a particularly challenging day, maybe navigating difficult conversations at work or dealing with unexpected stressors, your self-control battery might be running pretty low.
That's a very apt analogy.
Yes.
Yes. Dr. Jay Derrick, again, in Everyday Health, explains that after doing something really effortful, whether it's a demanding work task, an emotionally taxing interaction, or even just making a series of complex decisions, it's significantly harder to follow up with something else that requires similar effort. This is precisely where familiar TV shows step in as a kind of restorative tool. Research indicates that after an effortful task, people become demonstrably more interested in engaging with their favorite TV shows. And critically, afterward, they report having more energy and feeling more emotionally stable. It's a powerful, almost therapeutic mechanism to decompress and recharge after a grueling day.
Yeah, I completely understand that on a gut level. Clara, a supervisor interviewed in that Costa Rica study, perfectly captured this feeling. She called streaming my refuge after I leave work because it relaxes me. And Martina, an IT project manager, described her routine of rewatching Modern Family at night as a deliberate reward to disconnect from the daily stress and pressures of her job. It's clearly a conscious act of self-care and recharging, isn't it? Not just mindless consumption.
And this isn't just about subjective feelings. There are direct physiological benefits too. Binge watching, particularly comforting content, has actually been shown to trigger the release of dopamine in the brain. This neurochemical release is associated with feelings of happiness, excitement, and pleasure. Raffaello Antonio, a counseling psychologist, specifically noted this dopamine release when discussing binge watching. Moreover, rewatching can be a highly deliberate act of mood cultivation. Francesca, the psychologist from the Costa Rica study, explicitly explained how she selects content based on her mood that day, sometimes for nostalgia, sometimes to actively combat feelings of loneliness, or just to immerse herself in a desired emotional state. It's a conscious choice to influence one's emotional landscape.
So it's not just about escaping or passively being entertained, it's about actively creating or cultivating a desired emotional state. That's interesting. And speaking of nostalgia and emotional states, that brings us to another huge benefit, tapping into positive memories and strengthening our very sense of identity.
Exactly. Rewatching content offers this unique portal, doesn't it? Allowing individuals to revisit cherished past experiences and tap into that powerful wellspring of positive memories and emotions associated with when they first watched those shows. Dr. Pranicoli, cited in The Established, articulates this beautifully. Revisiting old TV series and movies allows individuals to tap into positive memories and emotions associated with those shows. Alexandra Gold, in the Post, further notes how we inherently make a positive association between that time in your life and the show you are watching at the time. This powerful psychological link naturally triggers deep nostalgic feelings and a longing to revisit not just the show, but those moments in our own lives.
That makes perfect sense. I know certain shows instantly transport me back to very specific periods of my life, almost like a mental time capsule. But there's also a concept I've heard of called developmental nostalgia, which sounds, I don't know, deeper than just remembering good times. Can you explain that distinction?
It is indeed a more profound concept.
Yeah.
Developmental nostalgia, as Dr. Coley describes it, is where rewatching helps individuals reflect on their personal growth and their life journey. It allows them to reconnect with different facets of their identity and find continuity and coherence across various life stages. The content effectively becomes a significant marker of their own journey, allowing them to see how far they've come, how they've changed, while still holding on to a vital sense of who they were and how those past experiences shaped them. It's a way of affirming one's self-narrative over time, you see.
And beyond our own personal growth, there's the undeniable relatability of the characters themselves, right? Giovanna Childs, a psychologist, pointed out that often with comfort shows, they're people we can resonate with, they're stories we resonate with, or they're stories we wish we could resonate with. There's something deeply comforting in seeing aspects of ourselves, or maybe our aspirations, reflected in these fictional lives.
Absolutely. Yesha Javarid Nirkar adds that the characters and their journeys become more than just entertainment. They become sources of inspiration and hope. We form genuine emotional bonds with these characters. We find security and familiarity in their presence, experiencing a wide range of emotions from pure joy to cathartic release right alongside them. Think about how Gilmore Girls, for example, helps viewers navigate common adolescent and young adult experiences with such wit and warmth, providing this sort of lighthearted lens for their own struggles. These shows become a truly meaningful part of our lives because we are so emotionally invested in their fictional worlds. They offer a safe space to explore emotions and situations we might encounter in our own lives.
Okay, so if rewatching offers all these really profound cognitive, emotional, and social benefits, how do modern streaming platforms, which, on the surface seem to offer this infinity of new choices, how do they actually facilitate this deep human need for the familiar? It seems kind of paradoxical.
It absolutely is a paradox, and a fascinating one at that. That Universidad de Costa Rica study explicitly explores this apparent contradiction. It acknowledges how streaming platforms are often perceived as offering seemingly limitless new options. Yet, for a significant portion of users, they serve a very different, almost opposite purpose than endless discovery. Instead of being portals to the unknown, they become these curated libraries of the known.
I see that. Yeah, it's almost counterintuitive to how they're marketed, isn't it? Instead of constantly exploring, we're often retreating into the comfort of the familiar.
Indeed. And it's the very technological features of these services, particularly what researchers call their self-schedule affordances.
Self-schedule affordances, that sounds technical.
It does, but it's simply the ability to watch content whenever and wherever you please. That's what greatly facilitates rewatching as a deliberate and purposeful activity. Martina, that IT project manager from the Costa Rica study, she put it perfectly. I look for things that really disconnect me from daily stress. I consume platforms a lot at night when I've finished everything else. And spit. This capability transforms the streaming platform into a readily accessible content archive, a personal, on-demand refuge for daily disconnection and emotional replenishment. Another participant, Giselle, even shared how she specifically prepared for the Sex and the City reboot by rewatching all the old seasons from Max's complete and permanent archive of the show.
So the platform itself becomes like a personal library of comfort, just readily available at our fingertips. And I imagine mobile devices, phones, and tablets enhance this integration even further, allowing for an almost constant connection to these comfort worlds.
Absolutely. The seamless integration into daily life is a critical component here. Monica, also from the Costa Rica study, vividly described taking her phone to the bathroom or watching while hanging up laundry. The series literally follows her wherever she goes throughout the house, providing constant and instant companionship even during routine chores. This ubiquitous instant access allows rewatching to become deeply woven into the very fabric of everyday life, an ever-present source of familiar comfort and background presence.
And when we're talking about this profoundly rewatchable content, are there particular genres that tend to dominate this comfort show universe? What kind of content best fits this interpretive contract for comfort you mentioned earlier?
Generally, yes, there's a strong pattern. The Costa Rica study mentions the work of a scholar named Schuster, who explains that genres and their conventions provide an interpretive contract for viewers. This basically means that when you choose a comedy, for instance, you enter into this unspoken agreement about the type of story, characters, and emotional journey you can expect. This offers a fundamental predictability, but it also allows for what's sometimes called orchestrated surprise.
Orchestrated surprise.
Yeah, the kind of plot twists or comedic timing that are surprising within the known boundaries of the genre. And that contributes significantly to ontological comfort. Valentina, for instance, in the study, found comfort in the orchestrated surprise of Lucifer. She knew the ultimate outcome, sure, but she was still delightfully surprised by the specific details and the comedic elements within each episode.
Okay. So even with a plot you essentially know, there's still that delightful element of discovery or maybe rediscovery within the familiar framework. What kind of content then most consistently delivers this kind of comfort?
Well, there's a really pronounced preference for what participants consistently refer to as light content shows that are perceived as easy to process, both emotionally and cognitively. Things that aren't overly demanding, intellectually challenging, or emotionally draining. Susanna, a student in the Costa Rica study, gave a great example. She said she rewatched Arrested Development and Gilmore Girls precisely because she didn't need to invest a lot of time, attention, commitment, emotional burden. Hey, and Valentina defined light not as something silly, but rather easy to process, meaning it doesn't require intense mental gymnastics or deep emotional labor.
And I'm guessing, based on those examples, that light often translates directly to comedies. Is that fair to say?
You'd be absolutely correct. The dominance of comedy in the rewatchable light content category is incredibly clear. Comedies are inherently seen as accessible, right? They feature characters dealing with relatively trivial or relatable situations, and crucially, they are incredibly effective at lifting mood and reducing stress. Monica, another participant, explicitly stated, "For me, it was important to have comedy among all the series I watch because it lifts my mood and takes away the stress of work." And the study highlighted examples that are almost universally recognized as comfort shows. Modern Family, The Office, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, How I Met Your Mother. These shows just reliably provide that emotional lift and mental ease.
It's quite striking how much of that popular light content, especially the comedies we just mentioned, are U.S. produced. Does that significant U.S. influence factor into the rewatching experience for global audiences, particularly for those in different cultural contexts like, say, Costa Rica?
It absolutely does, and it's a nuanced but really crucial point. The Costa Rica study, for example, explicitly highlights participants' strong preference for U.S.-produced content and its perceived familiarity. This means that the comfort many global viewers derive often comes from genre conventions, character types, and everyday situations that are largely defined and popularized by the U.S. television industry. But, and this is important, this isn't simply passive consumption or cultural, giving in. Rodrigo Muñoz Gonzalez introduces a fascinating and incredibly insightful concept called critical resignation, to describe how audiences in these transnational contexts, like Costa Rica, actively engage with this content.
Critical resignation.
Oh, it's a
Okay, that sounds like a very layered term. It implies a kind of active, almost philosophical engagement rather than just passively accepting American culture. Can you explain what that actually looks like?
Precisely. It's far from passive. Critical resignation describes this reflexive, interpretive operation where viewers engage in both an appreciation for and, simultaneously, a subtle resistance to American culture. So these audiences relate deeply to the ordinary, often universal situations portrayed: the family dynamics, workplace absurdities, friendship struggles. We all get that stuff. However, they also maintain this critical awareness of the political significance, the underlying values, and the broader U.S. cultural and economic influence embedded within the content. Valentina, the Airbnb administrator from the study, provided a truly compelling articulation of this. She referred to watching Americanized or agringado content as a sin, implying a kind of moral or cultural critique. Yet she simultaneously described it as a pragmatic choice to save time and mental effort after a long day. She even used the content itself to critique how messed up they are, effectively using the very shows as a lens through which to critique the culture they portray. She also mentioned the practical benefit of improving her English skills for work.
Wow, that's a really powerful and surprising insight. So it's not just about comfort, it's about a form of cultural navigation and a subtle exercise of agency. They're finding comfort within a system or a cultural landscape that isn't entirely of their own making, while simultaneously forming their own opinions and critiques.
Exactly. And this demonstrates how rewatching can become this powerful space for building notions of self-worth and purpose, allowing a distinct sense of agency over one's life within a capitalist, globally interconnected society that wasn't necessarily their own creation. It transforms what might seem like mere entertainment into a tool for understanding and navigating their own reality.
That brings us to a really important point. Given all these deep, multifaceted benefits of rewatching, it feels crucial to address some common misconceptions surrounding this behavior, especially those that tend to circulate on social media.
Absolutely. We definitely need to directly address, and let's be clear, debunk the viral social media claim. You often see it on platforms like TikTok, that rewatching the same shows over and over is a direct sign of anxiety or depression. The Reddit thread we looked at for this deep dive explicitly discusses a viral TikTok post making this very claim, and the comments section is just filled with users emphatically refuting it. You'll find comments like, "TikTok is not the greatest source for mental health advice," and strong warnings like, "Don't get info like this from TikTok." It's vital to understand that such platforms are often unreliable sources for complex mental health advice, and they can, unfortunately, pathologize perfectly normal human behaviors, leading to unnecessary worry or self-diagnosis.
Right. So if you, the listener, find yourself rewatching Parks and Recreation for the fifth time, it's not some immediate red flag that you're necessarily in the midst of a mental health crisis.
Not at all, and we really want to be crystal clear about this. Rewatching is a widespread and common human behavior, something many people do regularly. It's akin to rereading a favorite book, listening to the same beloved song on repeat, or revisiting a cherished place. It's a normal, often very healthy habit for a vast spectrum of individuals. Plenty of neurotypical people engage in it regularly. Reddit users affirm this emphatically, stating things like, "Plenty of neurotypical people watch the same stuff all the time too," and reassuringly, "Most people on the planet do this and doesn't mean they have a mental illness. It's normal behavior." As Psychology Today wisely advises, familiarity is your friend. Watch unapologetically.
That's certainly a relief for many listeners, I'm sure. So if it's not necessarily a sign of pathology, what are some of the other diverse underlying motivations for rewatching that aren't solely about anxiety or depression? There must be a broader spectrum of reasons why we do it.
Oh, there absolutely is. For some people, rewatching simply serves as essential background noise. Users sometimes describe it as a kind of sound addiction. Silence, for certain individuals, can be challenging, particularly for what some describe as overthinking brains that seem to thrive on constant input. Familiar shows, in this context, allow for divided attention. You can do other tasks without the fear of missing important plot points or character developments. A Reddit user, FunnyStaff5877, put this perfectly. "I am a sound addict. I have to watch or listen to something when I am not occupied. As soon as I am alone and it's quiet, I put on a show." Another user, Stillborn Songs, mentioned the need to escape the silence. Silence is not friendly to an overthinking brain, and Vigator broadly called it being addicted to distraction.
That makes perfect sense. It's like a gentle, comforting hum that fills the void, maybe preventing your mind from spiraling or feeling too isolated. It provides a structured, familiar auditory landscape.
Exactly. And it's also a very common and highly effective coping practice for many autistic and other neurodivergent individuals. Sometimes it's even referred to informally as having a same show. For them, the predictability and structured nature of familiar content provide a crucial sense of comfort, routine, and a reduction of sensory or cognitive overwhelm in a world that can often feel unpredictable and chaotic. Reddit users like GuineaGirl96 and TDTree9000, who specifically mentioned their ADHD brain-forgetting shows, meaning they needed to rewatch for continuity, highlighted this really important aspect.
Okay. So while rewatching can certainly be a coping mechanism for individuals experiencing anxiety, depression, or other mental health challenges, maybe to escape intrusive thoughts or feelings of loneliness, it's crucial to emphasize that the act itself does not automatically diagnose them with these conditions. It can simply be one tool among many, and often a very positive and self-compassionate one within a larger journey toward mental well-being.
Absolutely. One Reddit user even shared their powerful personal progress, detailing how they were navigating medication and personal growth while continuing to use their comfort shows as a valuable, unproblematic part of their routine. It wasn't the cause of their struggles, but often a supportive tool in managing them. And finally, sometimes the specific choice of a comfort show reflects a particular emotional need or even something that might be missing or desired in an individual's current life. A really compelling example came from Reddit user Hebranovich, who noted they rewatch The Office when they miss an office environment, or Community when they long for the camaraderie of college friends, or even Modern Family when they're navigating challenging family issues at home. These shows aren't just entertainment then, they fill a specific emotional void, providing a sense of connection or understanding that might be lacking in real life at that moment.
That's a truly powerful way to connect all the threads of our discussion today. It ties everything back together, the predictability, the need for connection, the emotional regulation, all potentially focused on filling a specific emotional or cognitive need. It reveals just how much intentionality, even if it's subconscious, goes into pressing that play button on an old favorite.
So in summary, this deep dive has really shown that rewatching is far more than just a passive leisure activity. It is a fundamental and enduring human practice. It seems driven by an active, conscious pursuit of what we've termed ontological comfort, a profound and deep sense of well-being derived from understanding everyday life and feeling a conscious capacity to act and navigate within it. Now, this is distinct from ontological security, which implies a more unconscious, stable state of affairs. Rewatching in this sense helps us actively manage the quotidian spheres of life. Think household chores, work stress, or simply the quiet moments alone. And it's a vital tool to cope with broader societal pressures and uncertainties. It is, pretty unequivocally, an intentional act of self-care and self-grounding.
This deep dive has genuinely challenged the way I think about my own viewing habits, and I really hope it has for you as well, the listener. We often hear about the modern streaming landscape being presented as this endless gateway to infinite content, right? A boundless universe of new shows and films just waiting to be discovered. But for so many of us, as we've explored today, it functions as quite the opposite. A portal to the finite and the restricted, a carefully curated, comforting, and known space that we return to again and again. So here's maybe a final provocative thought for you to reflect on. In an era characterized by overwhelming information, relentless novelty, and seemingly limitless choices, what does our inherent human desire for the predictable and the familiar truly reveal about our fundamental needs? Needs for stability, authentic connection, and profound emotional well-being.
Indeed. And that raises an even deeper, perhaps more important question. What does it mean that comfort seems to have transformed from a mere expectation into an almost essential obligation in contemporary life? And how does our intentional act of rewatching these familiar narratives actively help us develop a crucial sense of agency and groundedness in a world that isn't entirely our own creation or, frankly, under our control?
So the next time you choose to re-enter that familiar fictional world, whether it's Friends for the 100th time, maybe The Office playing in the background while you do chores, or that specific movie that always brings a smile to your face, know that you're not just watching a show, you are engaging in a powerful, science-backed act of self-care, emotional regulation, and in a way, profound empowerment. Until our next deep dive, keep embracing your comfort shows unapologetically.